Hey, what's up everybody? Video 44 coming at you another video. Alright, so figured I'd do a little basketball video since I'm kind of killing time. Got laundry going on, got an NBA fantasy draft coming up in about 30 minutes. I figured I'd just pick a team and just start talking. And I was going to talk about the Dallas Mavericks. Looked at their roster and realized they're a lot better than I thought. Glad I got a chance to glance at that roster because they picked up some dudes. Derrick Jones Jr. is there. Wasn't aware of that. Dante Exum is there. Wasn't aware of that. Of course, you know, we got to mention the fact that they went and got Seth Curry out of Philadelphia again. I think it's his second or third tenure with the Mavericks. I had forgotten about that, although I was aware. But the news that's come out about their team is that they're essentially looking to start their two rookies, Olivier Maxence Prosper, and Derek Lively the second. And I think that that's a fantastic idea because they last year had some really serious defensive issues, and I felt like those were two home run draft picks. Guys that you expect to come in and immediately affect defensive side of the ball and could really help on the offensive side too, especially if Derek Lively continues to shoot the three the way that he did in the draft combine. So this is a situation where I think this team could take a massive jump. When I say massive, I think they could be a playoff team this year for sure. Last year they were one game away from being a playoff team, decided to lose that game purposefully against the Chicago Bulls so that they can keep their pick and have it not go to, I believe, the Chicago Bulls. I think that's who would have gotten their pick if they would have lost that game by way of the standings. It would have shaken up that way. They did keep their pick, of course. Took Lively. I thought that was the only way to go. About a month and a half, I think it was maybe a month before the draft, I was actually saying basically if the Dallas Mavericks don't take Derek Lively, they should fire everybody. And they did what made the most sense because at the end of the day, they had some serious defensive issues on the interior. And even though they had two of the best players on the planet in Luka Doncic and Killer Kai, at the end of the day, if you don't put yourself in a position to have interior defense, it's a layup line. And that's essentially what they were running into. They didn't see the point in trying to make the playoffs or the play-in tournament at all. With that being the case, they'd much rather just take that 10th pick and draft the way that they did. I was always big on Olivier Maxence Prosper ever since I was able to kind of do a little scouting on his game. I was able to understand that he was somebody that could immediately help you defensively, as I've already said. And now that they've added him to the fold, I think it's just common sense that they play him. Now, granted, you can start other players too because they do have a good mix of defensive players that they've brought in with, of course, Grant Williams coming over from the Boston Celtics. And as I said, Derrick Jones Jr. is somebody that you want to play as well at that position for some defense. So the depth that they now have is significant. You still got Josh Green coming back year 3. I like that player a lot. You know, if Tim Hardaway Jr. is healthy going into this season, so you're excited about that. Of course, you know, I'm really tough on Dwight Powell. I just don't really look at him as a prospect that should be getting the money that he gets every single time from the Dallas Mavericks. He's somebody's nephew or something. I don't know what the hell that's about. But I think their team would be so much better if they would have just liquidated his salary and gotten a better player. But nevertheless, the metrics tell you that he sets good screens, can rebound the ball, obviously very athletic, somebody who knows the system, somebody who's probably very good in the locker room. So for whatever reason, they just keep bringing him back. And so we're just going to live with that. If you're a Dallas Maverick fan, you're probably tired of him too, because he really doesn't do a whole lot for you. And I'm not one of those people that's pulled punches about that over the years. I just don't. But nevertheless, he's somebody that they've brought back yet again on a lengthy contract. I don't remember what it is, but it's multiple years. And so he'll be in position to be their center as well. But now that Derek Lively's in place, it makes even less sense to have brought him back. But hey, Mavericks will Mav. At the end of the day, man, what makes them exciting for me is the fact that they have Kyrie Irving and Luka Doncic. And while that was in place last year, of course, when you bring in a team, guys in the mid-season, and you don't have the defensive presence, it's just not a whole lot to be excited about. But since they are going to have a training camp, of course, they got the last couple of months of the season to kind of work with one another, get to know one another's game a little better. I think they could be very exciting this season if both remain healthy and have those pieces in place to help do the dirty work, the defensive stuff, and things of that nature. So this is an exciting team, man. There's another player on this team, Hardy, that I think is going to be very good as well. Green and Hardy were young players that I'm waiting for them to give bigger opportunities to. Those opportunities have yet to come because of the presence of Luka Doncic, Luka the Don, I like to call him that, who ultimately kind of has a lot centered around him in the isolation half court type of thing. it's kind of hard to get other guys involved. Usually they were able to do more with those particular pieces when he wasn't on the floor, from what my eyesight showed me. But this year they're going to have more of a well-rounded roster to kind of let Luka have a bit more rest on the bench, maybe take some games off if they decide to go that route, if he has any injuries, things of that nature. They have a more of a balanced team to kind of do more than just be Luka-eccentric. And so that's going to be interesting to see how Jason Kidd goes about that. Obviously, with the Lakers taking Wood off of their hands, you don't have to worry about them having a player in place that they ultimately should be playing at a higher level but won't be using very much. So I think that kind of brings a lot of balance to their team as well. Just not having that dynamic where they're just by default disappointed at what they're seeing there. So those are things that are on my mind. You know, I really like the idea of the shooting that they have. Of course, as I said, they brought in Curry. You know, even though I don't look at Lively as a shooter, if he's going to shoot like he did in the combine, he's going to help them stretching the floor, catching lobs. Obviously a fantastic blocker, defensive presence. And then you look at the idea of just having Tim Hardaway Jr. back 100% healthy. He is somebody who I really still believe can stretch the floor, maybe get you 30 points on a really good night. But ultimately he's not going to take too much away from those other guys, and he's going to create the spacing necessary to keep them honest. So I think that is ultimately what you have right there in Dallas. Kyrie Irving, fresh off his new contract with Antifa. I'm not sure how to pronounce the name of the shoes, but I'm pretty sure I'll know it by the time it's over with. I love the logo that they came up with for Kyrie. Just the whole thing is bringing a good momentum type of energy into the season for the Dallas Mavericks. And of course, Luka Doncic. It's been kind of rumored that he wasn't all too thrilled about how everything was going in Dallas leading up to this point. But if I were him, I would be about as excited as I have been since Jalen Brunson was on the team when they went to the Western Conference Finals and did some damage. So, you know, whatever you think of Kyrie Irving off the court, I don't think it's hard to tell that he is going to be somebody who at the very least can be an equal to Jalen Brunson, and you shouldn't have any drop-off having lost Jalen Brunson to the New York Knicks with a full off-season for teams to kind of get ready, and of course training camp more so for guys to kind of get used to one another for a full season ahead. Of course, we know we got the play-in tournament coming up. Am I saying that right? The in-season tournament is coming up. That's a more accurate way of putting it. And I think the Dallas Mavericks are a team that you could be looking at to see if they can do some damage in that tournament coming up in this Western Conference. I wish I had the list of teams that they would be playing in their division, but I think they're a sneaky squad because at the end of the day, they're going to be able to score on a lot of possessions just off of the strength of the efficiency of both of their stars. And when you couple that with the ability to get defensive stops for a change, if they can really excel on the defensive end as a squad, they shouldn't have any problem winning basketball games in this league with the depth that they now have. So I'm intrigued by the Dallas Mavericks, much more intrigued now that I've gotten a chance to look at that roster. They just have a bit more athleticism than I thought they had. They definitely have more defensive presence, prospects in place that can help them. High-level rookies that should really establish themselves as defenders and rebounders on top of what's already in place. Guys that have been there for a little while. And of course, we know they've moved on from Reggie Bullock. I believe he's a Spur. I think they moved him to the Spurs. I don't remember exactly what they got in place for him, but they're going to miss his defensive ability and his floor stretching ability, but I think that should open up the door for guys like Green and Hardy and Derrick Jones to have minutes available that may not have been available if he were there. Of course, you love the second unit that they have just off the strength of the depth that they're putting together. Having Curry in place, of whom I wonder how much he has left in the tank, because Curry didn't look all that great in Philly last year. He had a couple injuries since, but at the end of the day, you don't really need him to be a world beater. You just need him to be able to create space for Luka and Kyrie and give them a spell off the bench, creating a good, once again, bench dynamic with the depth that they now have. So Derrick Jones is a guy I really liked in Chicago last year. He had some down years ever since leaving Miami. Kind of went to Portland a little bit, wasn't able to do much, but I thought he did a really good job with the lesser role provided to him in Chicago. And so he's going to be bringing momentum from last season to this situation. And I just like the overall look of the Dallas Mavericks with him in there, being able to catch lobs, run the floor, play the wing, and ultimately be dynamic defensively. for their team. So the influx of defensive players is what we're talking about. Grant Williams, Omax Prosper, Derrick Jones Jr., Derek Lively. You just love that four tandem there of guys that can just ultimately insert defense into the Dallas Mavericks equation, because they were the Alice Mavericks last year. You couldn't put the D there. They didn't have any. So needless to say, with those players coming in, it's going to be a big deal. And also, I just want to double back to understand that Grant Williams is a player who I've seen him do things that are outside of what you would think are his limitations. You don't look at him as a three-point shooter. But I remember in the playoffs of him having like 7 or 8 threes in a game, a closeout game, if I'm not mistaken, with the Boston Celtics against the Milwaukee Bucks, I believe it was. And this is a guy who we've talked about a lot on this channel. And if you go back several years into my archives, you're going to see me talk about having scouted him and just simply saying I didn't believe in his game because of how his draft video, the videos that were showcasing his game when he was being drafted, were presented to us. Essentially, his game was somebody who had a back-to-the-basket game, looks to turn around, lay the ball up from the block. Just a game that was just completely outdated for the league. But he reinvented himself completely in Boston. That's not who he is at all. He's more so of a defensive guy with a huge body. If I'm not mistaken, he had a situation where somebody stepped on his head accidentally. It's the type of thing that you don't know if a person could survive, and he jumped right back up. This is a football playing type of dude. He's built for that sport and just so happens to be over here. Huge guy, at least 230 pounds. And I think he's going to help them at the 4 spot and the 3 spot, kind of give them a little more cushion for Omax, just in case Omax Prosper doesn't come in and be a world beater or has some injury issues or something of that nature. They don't fall off a cliff defensively because they have that player in place on a multi-year deal. So, yeah, definitely don't want to say too much about the Dallas Mavericks without bringing Grant Williams into the fold. He's a playoff performer. Somebody's gone deep in the playoffs, proven. And even though he had a very bad season last year for his standards, he came off of a fantastic playoffs the prior before that. So you look for him to have a bounce back, a resurgence in Dallas. And, I really like the idea of him and Jason Kidd coming together for what they need defensively. So this is a team where if for some reason Kyrie goes down with an injury, that even if both Kyrie and Luka go down with injuries, you still see some cohesive ability with the way that they could put their team together. They just have a lot more versatility to themselves and obviously a lot more defense to themselves, athleticism as well. So I can see them winning games against bad teams if 1 or 2 of those guys are out. I really see it. But the thing about it is, with them in place, they're going to have to find a style of play that allows them to diversify, because at the end of the day, Kyrie is an ISO player who's going to look to get the ball and have the ball in his hands a good portion of the time. And of course, Luka Doncic controls the basketball for the Dallas Mavericks more than probably anybody in the league right now. So the key is for them to be facilitators and allow those other guys to get their touches so that they can be as balanced a basketball team as they are on paper. So that's what I would see there at the Dallas Mavericks. I'm intrigued by them. I haven't worked into the equation where I think they will land, because the Western Conference is obviously extremely deep. And as I say about my own team and any other team in the West, it's not necessarily about your record. It's about just making it into that top 10 at the end of the season. Make sure you're either a play-in tournament team or a playoff team, because that's really what it's about. Every team should be hovering around 40 wins. I don't think anybody's going to really be hovering above 55 wins at all, just out of the sheer nature of how much parity is in the Western Conference. But I can say that the Dallas Mavericks are a competitive squad with a lot of depth and the ability to bring high-level talent to the floor against anybody. They should be able to score. And so that's really what I see there, man. If their defense comes together with the prospects they brought in, and they are able to be as scrappy as what they look like they'll be able to put on the floor with Lively, Williams, Hardy, guys like that, Omax Prosper, Grant Williams. You just love the idea that they got guys who can jump after 50-50 balls. They got guys who should be able to scrap if necessary, guys who should be able to dig in and push people around if necessary. So that's what I like about this Dallas Mavericks team. They brought themselves a significant amount of toughness of what they've improved with in the offseason moves. And even though my Lakers, I feel like, have made the best moves in the Western Conference, followed by the Phoenix Suns, who've done some fantastic things, I don't think you look too far from the Dallas Mavericks after that as a team who really did fantastic in the Western Conference in the offseason. So that's what's on my mind. My concern for them is injuries, though. You guys have heard me speak on Kyrie Irving a bunch of times, and the thing that I'm worried about with Kyrie Irving is his bones. He tended early on in his career and throughout the course of his career to have broken bone issues, break a jaw, break a wrist, break a something like, and just something that always has concerned me about Killer Kai. Can he stay healthy? Because even though he's obviously one of the most talented players ever played, his body doesn't often cooperate with him. Now, I'm not as worried about him being motivated to play basketball. Obviously, a lot can change. He's a different person. So if something affects him a certain way, it's going to affect how he wants to approach his profession. But I think he should be, from my perspective, fairly excited about the prospect of having to play with this unit down there. They got a lot of depth. They got a lot of young players that should be able to help complement his game, and he has a superstar next to him who he should feel confident if everything falls into place, they should be contender. Luka Doncic's already proven that he can get to the Western Conference Finals. If a couple things bounced his way, he probably would have been in the finals. So it's not going to be too long before he starts competing for championships. And I just think this could be one of those years where they shock the world. They really have the opportunity to shock the world, especially if for some reason they improve from here with a mid-season trade or something like that. I am of the firm belief that the contract of Dwight Powell caps their ceiling. If they would have just been a bit more imaginative with that money, they could have brought themselves even more talent, and I would think of them as a certified contender. But for whatever reason, they keep on re-signing this dude, and I'm against it completely. And so is most of Dallas, from what I've understood. It's not personal to him. He's probably a really good guy. Like I said, he's probably really good in the locker room, but I just don't know if he brings to the table what his salary is ultimately supposed to represent. And then continuing to bring him back, it just ultimately makes it so that they're not good of a squad as they should be. And that is something that isn't talked about enough when you're considering the Dallas Mavericks. Is he somebody's nephew? Is he somebody's investor's son? Because that's the only thing that makes any sense in regards to that. And I really think it could be the difference between having enough to get a championship. And I've always felt that way. So that's just where I'm at with the Dallas Mavericks, man. For all that they've done right, they keep on bringing this dude back at high level amounts of the cap. It just doesn't make any sense. But all in all, they got a really good tandem of superstars, fantastic crop of rookies, some really good guys that they're coming in to play specific roles, some holdover guys from several years, like I said, Hardy and Green, that you expect to ascend into much better role players, if not something of their own, any day now. And so that's what it's really about. Can they stay healthy? If not, can those other guys accelerate into what they need to be? And can they get something out of Curry? Can Curry and Hardaway stretch the floor enough, be enough of a gravity threat for Kyrie Irving and Luka Doncic to have the type of spacing that ultimately they're going to be able to use to destroy teams, just basically destroy defenses as their talent would naturally do. So I'm intrigued, man. I'm intrigued. From possession to possession, they should be able to score with anybody so long as that spacing is available and that defense is in place. So that's really what I got to say about the Dallas Mavericks, man. Look out for them. They are a sleeper team in the Western Conference to do damage. I know there are a lot of teams that are probably as good, if not better than them. But with Kyrie Irving and Luka Doncic down there, there's no way you can count on them not winning if their defense is strong. So that's what I got to say. My name is BDL44. I thank you all for watching. I'm out.